The sun rose over Miami's coastline, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, casting a warm glow over the bustling port of Miami. Dulce Sol, a small bakery that smelled of fresh bread and dreams, was nestled among the weathered warehouses and vibrant food trucks. Inside, Isabella Ruiz, a 32-year-old African-American single mother, kneaded dough with practiced hands, her apron dusted with flour. Her two children, Mateo 10 and Sofia 6, played near the counter, their laughter mingling with the hum of the morning crowd outside. The modest but beloved bakery was more than a business to Isabella. It was a legacy, a tether to her late mother's memory, and a promise to her children of a better future. Isabella's life wasn't easy. Raising two kids alone in a city where the cost of living climbed faster than her profits was a daily battle. Yet she poured her heart into Dulce Sol, crafting pastries that drew locals and tourists alike. The bakery's weathered sign, hand-painted by her mother decades ago, hung proudly above the door, a symbol of resilience. As Isabella shaped dough for her signature guava pastries, she glanced at her kids, her reason for pushing through sleepless nights and endless bills. Mateo was sketching a recipe book in his notebook, dreaming of becoming a chef, while Sofia stacked sugar cubes into a wobbly tower, giggling when it collapsed. The bell above the door chimed, and Isabella looked up to see a man step inside. He was tall, with sandy blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, dressed in a tailored navy suit that screamed wealth. His presence felt out of place in the cozy, flower-dusted space. He introduced himself as Rafael Torres, a white American real estate tycoon whose name was synonymous with Miami's skyline. His voice was smooth and confident, but his smile carried a hint of mystery. "Ms. Ruiz," he said, glancing around the bakery. "I'm here about your property. I want to make you an offer." Isabella wiped her hands on her apron, her guard up. "This place isn't for sale." "Mr. Torres," she replied, her tone polite but firm. Rafael explained his vision, a luxury resort transforming the port into a playground for the elite, with Dulce Sol's lot as the centerpiece. The offer was staggering, enough money to pay off her debts, send her kids to college, and start anew anywhere. But Isabella's dark eyes flashed with determination. "This bakery is my family's heart," she said. "It's not just a building. It's our home." Rafael leaned against the counter, unfazed by her refusal. "I admire your passion," he said, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than necessary. "But think about your kids. This could change their lives." His words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they echoed her fears that she wasn't doing enough for Mateo and Sofia. Still, she held her ground. She said, "My kids have everything they need right here," gesturing to the bakery. Rafael nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes, and left with a promise to return. Over the next few days, Rafael became a regular at Dulce Sol. He'd order a coffee and a pastelito, sitting by the window, watching Isabella work. She noticed how he observed her, not just the bakery, but her. His presence unnerved her, yet there was something disarming about him. One morning, as Mateo proudly showed her a drawing of a cake he'd designed, Rafael overheard and chimed in. He said, "That's a chef's mind at work," his tone warm. Mateo beamed, and for the first time, Isabella saw a softness in Rafael that didn't align with the ruthless businessman she'd read about in the papers. Their conversations grew longer. Rafael asked about her recipes, her childhood, and her dreams. Cautious but curious, Isabella shared bits of her story growing up in Overtown, learning to bake at her mother's side, and taking over the bakery after her mother's passing. Rafael listened intently, his usual polished demeanor giving way to something more human. He didn't push the sale again, but Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that his visits were strategic. Was he genuinely interested in her, or was this a ploy to wear her down? One humid afternoon, as the port buzzed with activity, Rafael arrived with a folder. "I've been thinking," he said, sliding it across the counter. Inside was a detailed plan for the resort, with a small space carved out for Dulce Sol to remain. You could keep the bakery, Isabella. Be part of something bigger. She studied the plans, her heart torn. The idea of staying in the port was tempting, but the resort's glitz betrayed her mother's vision. "This isn't us," she said, pushing the folder back. "We're not a footnote in your empire." Rafael's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he ordered another coffee and sat quietly watching Mateo teach Sofia how to braid dough. As he left, he slipped a business card into Isabella's hand. "If you change your mind," he said softly, "I'm here." His touch lingered, sending a shiver through her. She tucked the card away, determined to ignore the warmth in his voice. But as she watched him enter the Miami sun, she couldn't deny the pull she felt, a dangerous mix of distrust and curiosity. That evening, Isabella stayed late to balance the books, her mind racing. The bakery barely broke even, and a recent rent hike worried her. She thought of Rafael's offer, the promise of security for her kids. But selling meant giving up the one place where she felt whole. As she locked up, the port's lights twinkled against the night sky, and she whispered a promise to her mother's memory. "I won't let this go." The Miami sun beat down on the port, where seagulls circled, and the air carried the tang of salt and diesel. Inside, Dulce Sol, Isabella moved with purpose, her hands shaping dough as if it could anchor her against the uncertainty of her future. Mateo and Sofia were at school, leaving the bakery quieter than usual, though the morning rush still brought a steady stream of customers. Isabella's smile was warm as she handed out pastries, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying Rafael Torres' offer. The money could change everything: private schools for her kids, a savings account, a life without the constant weight of bills. Yet every time she considered it, her stomach twisted. Dulce Sol wasn't just a business. It was her mother's dream, her children's inheritance, her sanctuary. Rafael returned that afternoon, his presence as striking as ever. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up revealing tanned forearms that hinted at time spent outdoors, not just in boardrooms. "Thought I'd try the coconut bread today," he said, leaning casually against the counter. Isabella raised an eyebrow, skeptical of his easy charm. She teased, "You're here a lot for someone who doesn't live on carbs," handing him a warm loaf. He laughed, a sound that filled the small space, and for a moment she let herself enjoy it. Their banter was interrupted by a sudden darkening of the sky. A summer storm common in Miami rolled in without warning, sending customers scurrying for cover. The power flickered, then died, plunging the bakery into dimness. Isabella cursed, grabbing a flashlight to check the fuse box. Mateo and Sofia, just back from school, huddled near the counter, their eyes wide with worry. "Mama, is the oven okay?" Sofia asked, clutching her stuffed dolphin. Isabella forced a smile. "It'll be fine, baby." Rafael, still there, stepped forward. "Let me take a look," he offered, his tone calm but authoritative. Isabella hesitated. She didn't want to owe him anything, but the darkening bakery and her kids' anxious faces pushed her to nod. Rafael rolled his sleeves further and followed her to the back, where the ancient fuse box sat. With surprising competence, he tinkered with the wiring, his hands steady despite the cramped, humid space. The lights flickered back on within minutes, and the oven hummed to life. Mateo and Sofia cheered, and Isabella let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Rafael suggested they make something together to ease the kids' lingering fear. "How about empanadas?" he said, pulling ingredients from the shelves with a familiarity that surprised Isabella. She watched as he guided Mateo in rolling dough and showed Sofia how to crimp the edges, his patience softening the edges of his polished persona. "My mom used to make these," he said, his voice quieter now. It was the one thing that made our house feel like home. Isabella caught a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes, a crack in the billionaire facade. As the storm cleared, leaving a rainbow over the port, Rafael stayed to clean up, wiping flour off the counter and joking with the kids. Isabella found herself watching him, torn between gratitude and suspicion. Was this kindness genuine, or was he playing a long game to get her land? When he left, he pressed a check into her hand, a donation he said to cover the cost of any storm damage. No strings attached, he promised. But Isabella's fingers trembled as she tucked it away, unsure whether to trust him. A woman entered the bakery the next day, her heels clicking sharply on the tile. She introduced herself as Carla Vega, a sleek, ambitious investor with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I heard about Torres's offer," Carla said, her tone syrupy. "You're smart to hold out, but be careful. He's not who he seems." She handed Isabella a folder with articles about Rafael's past deals. Small businesses bought out, communities displaced. "He's charming," Carla warned, "but he always gets what he wants." Isabella's heart sank as she skimmed the pages. Had she misread Rafael's kindness? Determined to protect her family, Isabella confronted Rafael when he returned that evening. "Is it true?" she demanded, holding up the folder. "Are you just waiting for me to cave?" Rafael's face hardened, but his voice was steady. "Those are half-truths, Isabella. I've made tough calls, but I'm not here to destroy you." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "Give me a chance to prove it." She wanted to believe him, but Carla's words echoed. As he left, the port's lights glittered outside, a reminder of the world Rafael belonged to, one that felt so far from hers. That night, Isabella sat with Mateo and Sofia, reading them a bedtime story by the lamp's glow. The bakery was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. Rafael's face lingered in her mind. His smile, gentleness with her kids, how he'd fixed the fuse box without hesitation. But Carla's warning gnawed at her. As she tucked her children in, she vowed to uncover the truth about Rafael Torres, no matter the cost. The Miami sun hung low, casting long shadows across the port of Miami, where the air buzzed with the chatter of tourists and the clatter of cargo cranes. Inside, Dulce Sol, Isabella Ruiz, moved with her usual grace, her hands deftly shaping dough for the morning's batch of conchas. The bakery was alive with the aroma of vanilla and cinnamon, a comforting contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Her two children, Mateo and Sofia, were at school, leaving her alone with her work and her worries. Since Carla Vega's visit, Isabella couldn't shake the unease that Rafael Torres, the charming billionaire who'd become a fixture at her bakery, might be playing her for a fool. Isabella's life had always been a balancing act. As an African-American single mother in a city where wealth often overshadowed heart, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Those instincts had kept Dulce Sol afloat through lean years, preserved her mother's legacy, and shielded her kids from the world's harsher edges. But Rafael was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Their daily visits, easy banter with Mateo and Sofia, and how he'd fixed the bakery's fuse box during the storm felt genuine. Yet Carla's folder of articles painted a different picture. A ruthless developer who'd raised small businesses to build gleaming towers. Was he helping her out of kindness, or was it a tactic to soften her resolve? The bell above the door chimed, and Rafael stepped inside, his white shirt crisp despite the humidity. His blue eyes scanned the bakery, landing on Isabella with a warmth that made her pulse quicken. "Morning," he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Is there any chance for one of those guava pastries?" Isabella forced a smile, handing him a plate, but her mind was elsewhere. She wanted to confront him about Carla's claims, but the bakery was busy and didn't want to air her doubts to customers. As the morning rush slowed, Rafael lingered sipping his coffee. He watched Isabella work her movements precise yet fluid, like a dancer in her element. He said, "You make it look easy," gesturing to the tray of perfectly golden empanadas she'd just pulled from the oven. She shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Years of practice." She replied, her tone neutral. She wanted to keep him at arm's length, but his presence was hard to ignore. He had a way of filling the space, not just with his confidence, but a quiet curiosity that made her feel seen. Mateo and Sofia burst through the door after school, their backpacks bouncing. Mama Sofia called, waving a drawing of a dolphin she'd made in art class, more reserved. Mateo headed straight for his sketchbook, where he was designing a new dessert. Rafael's face lit up at their arrival. "Hey, chef," he said to Mateo, ruffling his hair. "Got any new recipes?" Mateo grinned, showing him a sketch of a layered cake with mango frosting. Rafael leaned in, asking questions about the flavors, his enthusiasm drawing a rare smile from the boy. Isabella watched the exchange, her heart caught between warmth and suspicion. Rafael's ease with her kids was disarming, but Carla's words echoed. He always gets what he wants. When Sofia asked Rafael to help her braid dough for a batch of sweet rolls, he rolled up his sleeves without hesitation, his expensive watch glinting under the bakery's lights. "You're a natural," Isabella said, half teasing, as he fumbled with the dough. He laughed, a low, genuine sound. He admitted that my mom used to say I was hopeless in the kitchen, but she taught me enough to get by. The mention of his mother piqued Isabella's curiosity. Rafael rarely spoke of his past, and she wanted to know more. What was she like? She asked, her tone softer than intended. Rafael's expression shifted, a flicker of nostalgia crossing his face. "She was tough," he said. "Raised me alone in a tiny apartment in Coconut Grove. Worked 2 jobs, but always made time to cook. Her empanadas were better than anything I've tasted since." He paused, his eyes distant. She'd have liked this place. Isabella felt a pang of empathy. She knew what it was like to grow up with a single mother to carry the weight of her sacrifices. For a moment, she saw Rafael not as a tycoon, but as a man shaped by loss and love, just like her. But before she could respond, a customer interrupted, and the moment passed. Rafael stayed until closing, helping Sofia stack chairs, while Mateo swept the floor. As he left, he slipped a small envelope onto the counter. "For the kids," he said with a wink. Inside was a gift card to a local bookstore, enough to keep Mateo's recipe collection growing, and Sofia's love for stories fed. That night, Isabella sat at her kitchen table, the envelope in her hands. The gesture was thoughtful, but it only deepened her confusion. Was Rafael trying to win her over, or was he genuinely kind? She thought of her mother, who'd always said, "Trust what people do, not what they say." Rafael's actions spoke of care, but Carla's warnings lingered. Isabella tucked the gift card away, resolving to dig deeper. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not when Dulce Sol and her children's future were at stake. The bakery was quieter than usual the next morning, the port subdued under a gray sky. Isabella was rolling out dough when Carla Vega returned, her sleek ponytail and designer sunglasses, starkly contrasting the bakery's homespun charm. "I hope you've thought about what I said," Carla began, her voice smooth. "Torres is in trouble. I've seen him charm his way into deals, then leave people with nothing." She slid another document across the counter, a city planning report suggesting Rafael's company was already lobbying for permits at the port. Isabella's stomach churned as she scanned the report. It mentioned preliminary discussions for a resort with her lot marked as a key parcel. "He said he wasn't moving forward without my consent," she said, her voice tight. Carla raised an eyebrow. Did he check the dates on those papers? He's been planning this for months. Isabella's hands trembled as she folded the document. She wanted to believe Rafael, but the evidence was damning. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Carla smiled thinly. "I don't like seeing good people get played." After Carla left, Isabella's thoughts spiraled. She remembered Rafael's easy smile, how he'd helped her kids, the vulnerability in his voice when he spoke of his mother. But the report felt like a betrayal, a reminder that he belonged to a world of power and profit, not her world of flower and family. When Rafael arrived later that day, she confronted him holding up the document. "Is this true?" she demanded. "Have you been planning to take my bakery all along?" Rafael's face fell, his usual confidence replaced by something raw. "Isabella, that's not what it looks like," he said. "Those are old plans, exploratory. I scrapped them when I met you." His voice was earnest, but Isabella's trust was fraying. "I need time," she said, turning away. Rafael nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll wait," he said softly, then left the bells chime echoing in the empty bakery. As Isabella locked up that night, the port's lights shimmered against the water, a reminder of the life she'd built. She thought of Mateo's dreams of becoming a chef, Sophia's love for stories, and her promise to keep Dulce Sol alive. Rafael's kindness had felt real, but the documents told a different story. She needed answers, and would find them no matter what it took. The port of Miami hummed with its usual rhythm waves, lapping against the docks, vendors calling out to passers-by, and the distant rumble of cruise ships. Inside Dulce Sol, Isabella Ruiz worked with a quiet intensity, her hands shaping dough as if it could hold her world together. The bakery was her refuge, but lately it felt like a battleground. Rafael Torres' frequent visits and Carla Vega's warnings had turned her sanctuary into a place of doubt. Was Rafael the man who laughed with her kids and fixed her fuse box, or the ruthless developer Carla claimed he was? Isabella's life revolved around her children and her bakery. With his serious eyes and endless recipe sketches, Mateo dreamed of a future in the kitchen. With her boundless energy and love for stories, Sophia brought light to even the toughest days. But the weight of running Dulce Sol was growing heavier. A recent rent increase had stretched her finances thin, and the thought of Rafael's offer millions for her lot lingered like a temptation she couldn't afford to entertain. Selling meant security for her kids, but it also meant betraying her mother's legacy, the heart of the bakery that had sustained her family through grief and struggle. Rafael arrived just before noon, his presence as magnetic as ever. He wore a linen shirt, the top button undone, his blonde hair slightly tousled by the sea breeze. "Smells like heaven in here," he said, leaning against the counter. Isabella handed him a coffee, her movements automatic. She wanted to ask about the city planning report, to demand the truth, but the bakery was busy, and she couldn't risk a scene. Instead, she watched him searching for clues in his easy smile and steady gaze. As the afternoon wore on, Rafael stayed chatting with customers and helping Mateo carry a tray of pastries to the display case. When Sophia spilled a bag of flour, he grabbed a broom before Isabella could, sweeping it up with a playful grin. "You're gonna have to hire me soon," he teased. Isabella forced a laugh, but her mind was racing. His kindness felt too perfect, too calculated. Was he trying to win her over to get her land, or was she misjudging him? The next day, a tropical storm loomed on the horizon, the sky heavy with clouds. Isabella sent Mateo and Sophia to stay with her sister, not wanting them caught in the chaos if the power went out again. Alone in the bakery, she tackled a large order for a local festival, her hands moving on autopilot as she wrestled with her doubts. Rafael appeared mid-afternoon carrying a toolbox. Heard about the storm, he said. I wanted to check your wiring. Isabella hesitated, then nodded, too tired to argue. As they worked side by side in the cramped back room, Rafael's presence was comforting and unsettling. He fixed a loose connection in the fuse box, his hands steady, and shared stories of his childhood summers spent fishing with his mother, meals cooked on a budget but filled with love. She'd have loved your bakery, he said, his voice soft. It's real, like she was. Isabella wanted to believe him, but Carla echoed, he's not who he seems. Carla returned that evening as the storm's first rains lashed the port. She stood in the doorway, her umbrella dripping, her eyes sharp. She said, I found something you should see, handing Isabella a USB drive. It's a recording of Torres at a meeting with investors. He's talking about your lot. Isabella's heart sank as she plugged the drive into her laptop. The audio was grainy, but Rafael's voice was unmistakable, discussing plans for a resort and mentioning securing the Ruiz property. The words hit like a punch. He lied to me, Isabella whispered. Carla's smile was cold. He's good at that. But you're smarter than he thinks. Don't let him take what's yours. After she left, Isabella sat in the dark bakery, the storm raging outside. The recording confirmed her worst fears. Rafael had been playing her, using his charm to weaken her defenses. She thought of the gift card, the empanadas, the way he'd looked at her kids with such warmth. Was it all an act? The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the port glistening under a clear sky. Rafael arrived as Isabella opened the bakery, his smile faltering when he saw her expression. What's wrong? He asked, stepping closer. She held up the USB drive, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. I heard you, Rafael, talking about my land like it's already yours. His eyes widened, a mix of shock and hurt. Isabella, that's not, let me explain. But she cut him off, her voice rising. I trusted you. I let you near my kids. Get out. Rafael stood frozen, then nodded slowly. I'll go, he said, his voice low. But this isn't what you think. I'll prove it. He left the bell's chime, a hollow sound in the empty bakery. Isabella sank into a chair, the weight of betrayal crushing her. She thought of her mother, who'd fought to keep Dulce Sol alive through worse odds. I won't lose this, she vowed, her eyes on the faded sign above the door. As she cleaned the counter, her fingers brushed the gift card Rafael had given her kids. She wanted to tear it up, to erase every trace of him. But a small part of her, the part that had seen his gentleness, his vulnerability, hesitated. The port's waves crashed outside, a reminder that truth, like the tide, had a way of surfacing. Isabella didn't know what to believe, but she knew one thing: she'd protect her family no matter the cost. The port of Miami shimmered under the late morning sun, its docks alive with the calls of seagulls and the hum of activity. Inside, Dulce Sol Isabella Ruiz moved with mechanical precision, her hands shaping dough for a batch of tres leches cupcakes. The bakery's familiar scents, warm sugar-ripe guava and fresh bread, usually grounded her. But today they felt like a fragile shield against the storm of emotions churning inside. The recording Carla Vega had given her, with Rafael Torres' voice discussing plans to secure her property, had shattered the tentative trust she'd begun to build. She'd sent him away, her words sharp with betrayal, but the ache of his absence lingered, mingling with her anger. Isabella's life as an African-American single mother had taught her resilience. She'd faced skeptical landlords, dismissive suppliers, and the constant grind of keeping Dulce Sol afloat while raising Mateo and Sofia. The bakery was more than a business. It was her mother's dream, a sanctuary where she could provide for her children and honor the past. But Rafael's presence had complicated everything. His kindness, helping with the fuse box, playing with her kids, leaving a gift card for their books, had felt real. Now she wondered if it was all a calculated move to win her land. The bakery was quiet that morning, the usual rush subdued by a midweek lull. Mateo and Sofia were at school, leaving Isabella alone with her thoughts. She replayed the recording in her mind, Rafael's voice calm and businesslike, discussing her lot as if it were already his. The betrayal stung, but so did the memory of his smile, the way he'd listened when she spoke of her mother, the ease with which he'd bonded with her kids. She shook her head, trying to focus on the cupcakes, but her hands trembled as she piped frosting. The bell chimed, and Isabella braced herself, half expecting Rafael. Instead, it was Mrs. Carter, a regular who'd been buying Dulce Sol's conscious since Isabella was a child. "You look tired, sweetheart," Mrs. Carter said, her eyes kind but sharp. Isabella forced a smile, handing over a bag of pastries. "Just a long week," she said. Mrs. Carter lingered, recounting stories of Isabella's mother, how she'd built the bakery from nothing. "She'd be proud of you," Mrs. Carter said. "You're just as stubborn as she was." The words warmed Isabella, but reminded her of what was at stake. She couldn't let Rafael or anyone take Dulce Sol away. As the day wore on, Isabella's thoughts kept drifting to Rafael. She hated how he'd crept into her life, how his absence now felt like a void. She busied herself with a large order for a local church, hoping work would drown out her doubts. But when Mateo and Sofia arrived after school, their chatter filled the bakery with life, and Isabella's resolve hardened. She'd protect their future no matter what. The bell chimed again, and this time it was Rafael. He stood in the doorway, his usual confidence tempered by hesitation. His linen shirt was slightly rumpled, his blue eyes searching hers. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. Isabella's jaw tightened. She replied, "There's nothing to say," focusing on a tray of pastries, but Mateo, ever perceptive, tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, he helped us with the storm. Let's listen." Sofia nodded, clutching her stuffed dolphin. "He's nice, Mama." Isabella sighed, torn between her kid's trust and her own doubts. She nodded curtly, leading Rafael to a quiet corner of the bakery. "You've got 5 minutes," she said, crossing her arms. Rafael took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly. "He began that recording months ago, before I met you. It was a preliminary meeting, just exploring options. I swear, Isabella, I dropped those plans when I saw what this place means to you." She studied him, searching for a lie in his eyes, but all she saw was sincerity and something else, a vulnerability she hadn't noticed before. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice softer now. Rafael ran a hand through his hair, his composure fraying. "Because I've been where you are," he said. "My mom was like you, fought for everything she had. When I saw you with your kids, it reminded me of her. I'm not here to take your dream. I want to help you keep it." His words hit a nerve, stirring memories of her mother's sacrifices. But Carla's warnings and the city planning report still loomed large. "You say that," Isabella said, "but your world is about profit. How do I know this isn't a game to you?" Rafael's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with hurt. He said, "I don't know how to prove it yet, but I will. I'm not giving up on you." He left before she could respond, the bell's chime echoing in the quiet bakery. That evening, Isabella stayed late, scrubbing counters, as if she could erase her confusion. Mateo and Sofia helped, their chatter a welcome distraction. Mateo showed her a new recipe he'd sketched, a mango tart, inspired by Rafael's stories of his mother's cooking. He said she used to make tarts like this. Mateo said, his eyes bright. Isabella's heart twisted. She wanted to protect her kids from disappointment, but they'd already let Rafael in. The next day, a delivery arrived, a set of new baking trays that Isabella had been eyeing but couldn't afford. The note read, "For Dulce Sol, no strings attached. R." She stared at the trays, her resolve wavering. Was this another tactic, or was Rafael truly trying to make amends? As she closed the bakery, The port's lights twinkled against the night sky, and she whispered a promise to herself. She'd find the truth for her kids, her mother, and Dulce Sol. Rafael kept his distance over the next few days, but his presence lingered in small ways. A local artist dropped by saying Rafael had commissioned a mural for the bakery's exterior free of charge. A supplier mentioned that Rafael had settled an overdue invoice that Isabella hadn't even known about. Each gesture chipped away at her defenses, but she couldn't shake the fear that trusting him was a risk she couldn't afford. When Carla called offering to meet and discuss options for protecting the bakery, Isabella agreed, determined to uncover the whole story. At the meeting, Carla was all charm, her smile polished as she sipped coffee at a portside cafe. "I've got connections," she said. "I can help you fight Torres and keep your land." But her tone felt rehearsed, and Isabella's instincts prickled. "Why are you so invested in this?" she asked. Carla's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "I hate seeing people like him win," she said. Isabella nodded, but as she left, she couldn't shake the feeling that Carla's motives were as murky as Rafael's. Back at Dulce Sol, Isabella found Mateo and Sofia waiting, their faces bright with news. Rafael came by, Sofia said, holding up a kite he'd given her. He said we could fly it at the beach. Isabella's heart sank. She wanted to protect her kids from getting too attached, but they were already drawn to Rafael's warmth. As she tucked them into bed that night, she resolved to confront him again, not angrily, but with questions. She needed to know who Rafael Torres was, before her heart, or her children's got in too deep. The port of Miami pulsed with life, its docks a mosaic of color and sound vendors, hawking fresh fish, tourists snapping photos, and waves crashing against the pilings. Inside, Dulce Sol. Isabella Ruiz worked with a quiet determination, her hands kneading dough for a batch of coconut bread. The bakery was her anchor, where she could pour her love for her children and her mother's memory into every loaf and pastry. But the past week had shaken her foundation. Rafael Torres's kindness had begun to feel like a lifeline. Yet the recording Carla Vega had provided his voice, discussing plans to take her land, had left her reeling. She'd sent him away, but the emptiness he left behind was harder to ignore than expected. Isabella's life as an African-American single mother in Miami was a testament to her strength. She'd navigated prejudice, financial strain, and the loss of her mother to keep Dulce Sol alive. Mateo, with his dreams of becoming a chef, and Sofia's endless curiosity, were her reasons to keep going. But the bakery's future was precarious. A recent dip in sales and rising costs had her checking her accounts late into the night, her calculator a grim companion. Rafael's offer to buy her lot loomed large, a temptation she resisted, but couldn't entirely dismiss. The bell chimed, and Isabella tensed, half expecting Rafael. Instead, it was a delivery man, with a box of high-end baking supplies, mixing bowls, a new rolling pin items she'd only dreamed of owning. The note was simple, for the best baker in Miami. R. Isabella's fingers traced the words her heart caught between gratitude and suspicion. She wanted to believe Rafael's gestures were genuine, but Carla's recording and the city planning report suggested otherwise. Mateo and Sofia burst in after school, their energy filling the bakery. "Mama, look." Sofia held up a kite shaped like a dolphin, a gift from Rafael. "He said he'd take us to the beach to fly it." Mateo nodded, showing off a cookbook Rafael had dropped off. "It's got recipes from all over the world," he said, his eyes shining. Isabella forced a smile, but her stomach churned. Her kids were growing attached to Rafael, and she wasn't sure she could protect them from the fallout if he betrayed her. That afternoon, Rafael arrived, his presence quieter than usual. His blue eyes held hope and caution as he approached the counter. He said, "You told me to stay away, but I can't. Not until you hear me out." Isabella hesitated, glancing at her kids who were watching from behind. "Fine," she said, leading him to a table. "But no more games." Rafael sat, his hands clasped tightly. "The recording," he said, "is real, but it's old. It was from a meeting last year when I was scouting properties. I didn't know you, then didn't know what this place meant. I told my team to stop pursuing your lot when I met you. I swear it." He pulled out his phone, showing her an email to his board dated weeks ago, instructing them to exclude Dulce Sol from the resort plans. "I'm not perfect," he said. "I've made deals that hurt people. But I'm trying to be different with you." Isabella studied the email, her mind racing. It looked genuine, but trust was hard to rebuild. "Why should I believe you?" she asked. Rafael leaned forward, his voice low. "Because I see my mom in you. She fought for everything, just like you. I don't want to take that from you. I want to be part of it." His words stirred something deep within her, a longing to believe in someone again, but fear held her back. Before she could respond, Carla Vega walked in, her heels clicking sharply. "Isabella." "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her smile tight as she glanced at Rafael. "I have more information about our friend here." She handed Isabella a folder containing photos of Rafael with city officials dated recently. "He's been meeting with the planning board," Carla said, "behind your back." Rafael's face darkened. "That's not true," he said, standing. "Those meetings were about a different project downtown. Not the port." Isabella's head spun. The photos, the recording, the email. It was too much. "I need you both to leave," she said, her voice trembling. Carla smirked, exiting with a satisfied nod. Rafael lingered, his eyes pleading. "I'll prove I'm telling the truth," he said. "Please, Isabella, don't give up on me." He left the bells chime, a hollow echo. That night, Isabella sat with Mateo and Sofia, helping them with homework, as the port's lights glittered outside. Mateo, sensing her mood, hugged her. "Rafael's nice mama. He wouldn't lie." Sofia nodded, clutching her kite. Their faith in him broke Isabella's heart. She wanted to protect them, but they'd already let Rafael into their world. As she tucked them in, she resolved to investigate further. She'd call the city planning office, verify Rafael's story, and confront Carla about her motives. The next day, a community event at the port brought a surge of customers to Dulce Sol. Isabella worked tirelessly, her smile masking her turmoil. A local reporter stopped by, asking about the bakery's history. "It's my mother's legacy," Isabella said, her voice steady. "And I'll fight to keep it." The words felt like a vow she'd keep no matter what Rafael or Carla had planned. As she closed the bakery, the waves crashed against the docks, a reminder that truth, like the tide, would eventually rise. The port of Miami glowed under the midday sun, its docks bustling with vendors, tourists, and the rhythmic crash of waves against weathered pilings. Inside, Dulce Sol, Isabella Ruiz, worked with a quiet intensity, her hands shaping dough for a batch of guava pastelitos. The bakery's warm, sugary aroma was a comforting constant, but her heart was heavy with doubt. Rafael Torres, the white American billionaire who'd become an unexpected fixture in her life, had sworn he wasn't after her land. Still, Carla Vega's evidence photos, a recording, and city planning documents painted him as a liar. Isabella had sent him away, her trust shattered, but the absence of his easy smile and steady presence left a void she hadn't anticipated. As an African-American single mother, Isabella was no stranger to struggle. She'd kept Dulce Sol alive through financial strain, rising rents, and the weight of raising Mateo and Sofia alone. The bakery was her mother's legacy, a symbol of resilience and love, and she'd vowed to protect it for her children. Mateo 10, dreamed of becoming a chef, his sketchbook filled with recipes inspired by the bakery's flavors. Sophia, 6, brought joy with her boundless energy and love for stories. But the constant pressure of bills and the threat of losing her land to Rafael's resort plans had her questioning everything. The bakery was busy that morning, the air filled with the chatter of regulars and the clink of coins in the tip jar. Isabella moved with practiced efficiency, but her thoughts kept drifting to Rafael. His gestures, the baking trays, the mural, the paid invoice had felt genuine, but Carla's evidence was hard to ignore. She wanted to believe his email, which claimed he'd scrapped plans for her lot, but the photos of him with city officials suggested otherwise. As she frosted a tray of cupcakes, she felt the weight of her mother's memory, urging her to stay strong. Mateo and Sophia arrived after school, their backpacks slung over their shoulders. "Mama, can we make cookies today?" Sophia asked, clutching her dolphin kite, a gift from Rafael. Mateo, quieter, showed Isabella a new recipe sketch, a coconut flan inspired by Rafael's stories of his mother. He said his mom made the best flan. Mateo said, his eyes bright. Isabella's heart ached. Her kids had grown fond of Rafael, and their trust in him made her doubt her judgment. She forced a smile, nodding. "Sure, let's make cookies." The bell chimed and Isabella braced herself, but it was only Mrs. Carter, the longtime regular. Isabella said, "You've got that look again." Her voice warm but knowing. "Trouble with that fancy man." Isabella sighed, handing over a bag of conchas. "Something like that," she admitted. Mrs. Carter patted her hand. "Your mama always said to trust your gut. What's it telling you?" Isabella hesitated. Her gut was torn. Part of her saw Rafael's kindness and feared his motives. "I don't know yet," she said. As the day wore on, the port buzzed with news of a press conference at the city hall, where Rafael's company was set to announce its latest project. Isabella's stomach churned. Was this where he'd reveal his plans for her land? She considered closing early to attend, but a rush of customers kept her tethered to the bakery. Instead, she turned on the small TV behind the counter, tuning into a local news channel. The screen showed Rafael at a podium, his face serious, his suit impeccable. "Torres Enterprises has decided to pivot," he said, his voice clear. "We're no longer pursuing development at the port of Miami. The community there, businesses like Dulce Sol, is worth preserving." Isabella froze her hands, still on a tray of pastries. The camera panned to the crowd, where investors murmured, some visibly frustrated. Rafael continued, "We're focusing on downtown projects that won't displace local businesses." The anchor noted that the decision had made Torres Enterprises stock tumble, a risky move for the billionaire. Isabella's mind raced. Had he done this for her? Or was it another tactic to gain her trust? Mateo, watching the screen, tugged at her sleeve. "See, Mama. He's not bad." Sophia nodded, her kite bobbing. Isabella shushed them, her heart pounding. Rafael's words echoed his email, but she couldn't shake the image of him with city officials. She needed to know the truth. After closing, she called the city planning office, confirming that Rafael's meetings had indeed been about a downtown project, not the port. The photos Carla had shown her were real, but out of context. Relief washed over her, but it was tinged with guilt. Had she misjudged him? The next morning, Rafael appeared at Dulce Sol, his expression guarded but hopeful. "Did you see the press conference?" he asked, standing by the counter. Isabella nodded, her throat tight. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Rafael ran a hand through his hair, his usual polish fraying. "I wanted to show you, not just tell you," he said. "I know I've made mistakes, Isabella. My past isn't clean, but I meant what I said. I'm not here to take your dream." She studied him, seeing the strain in his eyes, the cost of his decision. "Your stock dropped," she said softly. "You did that for me." Rafael's smile was small, almost shy. For you, for your kids, for what this place means. I've spent too long building things that don't matter. This, he gestured to the bakery matters. Isabella's defenses wavered, but before she could respond, Carla Vega walked in her presence, sharp as a blade. I see you're still here. Torres? Carla said, her smile cold. She turned to Isabella. Please don't fall for his act. He's playing the hero now, but he'll turn on you. Rafael's jaw tightened. Enough, Carla, he said. You've been spreading lies to scare her. Tell her the truth. Carla's eyes narrowed, but she didn't back down. The truth is, you're a predator, Rafael. Always have been. She left her heels clicking, leaving tension in her wake. Isabella looked at Rafael, her heart torn. Is she right? She asked. Rafael met her gaze unflinching. She's my ex, Isabella. She's bitter and she wants my project to fail. But I'm not that man anymore. Let me prove it. He reached for her hand, but she pulled back, unwilling to trust fully. I need time, she said. He nodded, his eyes heavy with understanding. I'll wait, he said, leaving the bells chime soft in the quiet bakery. That night, Isabella sat with Mateo and Sofia, helping them decorate cookies. Their laughter filled the air, but her thoughts were on Rafael. His press conference had cost him, and the city's confirmation backed his story. But Carla's venom lingered, hinting at a past Rafael hadn't fully shared. As she tucked her kids into bed, she vowed to dig deeper. She'd protect Dulce Sol and her children, no matter what secrets Rafael hid. The port of Miami sparkled under a cloudless sky, its docks alive with the energy of a new day. Inside, Dulce Sol Isabella Ruiz worked with a steady rhythm, her hands shaping dough for a batch of coconut macaroons. The bakery was her haven, where she could pour her love into every pastry and shield her children from the world's uncertainties. But the past weeks had tested her resolve. Rafael Torres' public decision to abandon his resort plans at the port had shaken her doubts, but Carla Vega's relentless warnings and hints about his past kept her guarded. Isabella wanted to believe Rafael, but trust was fragile, and she couldn't afford to break it again. As an African-American single mother, Isabella had built a life of grit and grace. Dulce Sol was more than a bakery. It was her mother's dream, a legacy she'd fought to preserve through financial struggles and personal loss. Mateo, with his chef's ambitions, and Sofia's love for stories, were her reasons to keep going. But the bakery's future was precarious, and Rafael's presence, his kindness, vulnerability, and undeniable pull complicated everything. She couldn't deny the warmth she felt when he was near, but Carla's accusations cast a long shadow. The bakery was bustling that morning, the air filled with the scent of fresh bread and the chatter of customers. Isabella moved with efficiency, but her mind was elsewhere. Rafael's press conference had been a bold move, costing him millions in stock value. The city's confirmation that his meetings were about a downtown project, not her lot, had eased her fears. But Carla's claim that she was his ex added a new layer of doubt. What else was Rafael hiding? Mateo and Sofia arrived after school, and their energy was a welcome distraction. Mama, can we go to the beach with Rafael? Sofia asked, clutching her dolphin kite. Mateo nodded, showing Isabella a new recipe sketch, a guava tart, inspired by Rafael's stories. He said his mom used to make these. Mateo said, his voice full of admiration. Isabella's heart tightened. Her kids had let Rafael into their world, and she wasn't sure how to protect them if he let them down. Determined to rebuild trust, Rafael arrived mid-morning, not with his usual confidence, but with a quiet purpose. He carried a stack of flyers for a community event he'd organized at the port, a festival celebrating local businesses with Dulce Sol as the centerpiece. He said it could bring in more customers handing her the flyers. No pressure, just a chance to show off what you do. Isabella scanned the flyers, her throat tight. The event was set for the weekend with live music, food stalls, and a spotlight on her bakery. It was a gesture that could save her struggling business, but it also felt like another risk. She agreed to participate, and over the next few days, Rafael was a constant presence helping her prepare. He carried trays hung decorations, and even taught Mateo to pipe frosting his patience, earning the boy's admiration. Sofia followed him around, asking for stories about his childhood, and Rafael obliged, recounting tales of fishing with his mother in Coconut Grove. "She'd have loved you," he told Sofia, his voice soft. Isabella watched, her heart torn between warmth and caution. His actions spoke of care, but Carla's words lingered. "He's a predator." The festival was a success. The port buzzed with crowds, and Dulce Sol's stall was swamped with lines stretching down the dock. Isabella worked alongside Rafael, their hands brushing as they passed out pastries. For a moment, she let herself enjoy the music, the laughter, the sight of her kids dancing with other children. Rafael caught her eye, his smile tentative. "You're terrific at this," he said. "This place is magic because of you." Isabella's cheeks warmed, but she turned away, unwilling to let her guard down. After the festival, Rafael stayed to help clean up stacking chairs as the port quieted. He pulled Isabella aside, his expression serious. "I know about Carla," he said. "She told you we dated. It's true, but it ended years ago. She's angry because I wouldn't partner with her on a shady deal. She's trying to hurt me through you." Isabella studied him, searching for a lie, but his eyes were steady. "What else haven't you told me?" she asked. Rafael hesitated, then admitted, "I've made deals I'm not proud of, but I'm trying to change Isabella for you." Before she could respond, a delivery arrived, a new oven top of the line with a note from Rafael for Dulce Sol's future. Isabella's breath caught. The stove was a game changer, but it also felt like a weight, a reminder of how much she was letting him in. That night, she sat with Mateo and Sofia, listening to their excited chatter about the festival. "Rafael's like family," Sofia said, her words piercing Isabella's heart. She wanted to believe in him, but fear held her back. The next day, Isabella called Carla, demanding answers. Carla's tone was slick, evasive. She said, "I'm just looking out for you," but Isabella pressed, sensing her agenda. "What do you gain from this?" she asked. Carla's silence was telling, and when she finally spoke, her words were vague, hinting at her own interest in the port's land. Isabella hung up, her resolve hardening. She'd confront Rafael one last time, not angrily, but with a demand for complete transparency. As she locked up Dulce Sol, the port's waves whispered of truth, and she knew she'd find it for her kids, her mother, and herself. The port of Miami shimmered under the late summer sun, its docks alive with the hum of activity vendors calling out, waves lapping against the pilings, and the distant horn of a cruise ship. Inside, Dulce Sol, Isabella Ruiz, worked with a quiet focus, her hands shaping dough for a batch of pineapple empanadas. The bakery's warm, sugary aroma was a constant in her life, a tether to her mother's legacy and the future she was building for her children, Mateo and Sofia. But the past weeks had turned her sanctuary into a battleground of trust and doubt. Rafael Torres, the white American billionaire who'd woven himself into her world, had sworn he wasn't after her land, and his public decision to abandon his resort plans at the port had backed his words. Yet Carla Vega's relentless campaign, complete with a damning recording photos and city documents, kept Isabella's guard up. She wanted to believe Rafael, but the fear of betrayal lingered like a shadow. As an African-American single mother, Isabella had built her life on resilience. She'd kept Dulce Sol afloat through financial strain, rising rents, and the challenge of raising 2 kids alone in a city that often favored wealth over heart. Mateo 10, with his sketches of recipes and dreams of becoming a chef. And Sophia 6, with her boundless energy and love for stories, were her reasons to fight. The bakery was more than a business. It was her mother's dream, a symbol of love and perseverance. Rafael's gestures, the festival, the new oven, the paid invoices had chipped away at her defenses. But Carla's latest move, a recording of Rafael discussing her lot, had reignited her doubts. The bakery was bustling that morning, the air filled with the chatter of regulars and the clink of coins in the tip jar. Isabella moved with efficiency, but her mind was elsewhere. She'd confirmed with the city that Rafael's meetings were about a downtown project, not her land, and his press conference had cost him millions in stock value. But Carla's claim that she was his ex, combined with her relentless warnings, hinted at a deeper agenda. Isabella needed to know the truth, not just for herself, but for her kids who'd grown attached to Rafael's warmth. Mateo and Sophia burst in after school, their backpacks bouncing. "Mama, can we make cupcakes?" Sophia asked, clutching her dolphin kite, a gift from Rafael. Mateo showed Isabella a new recipe sketch, a mango mousse inspired by Rafael's stories of his mother's cooking. He said she used to make this for him. Mateo said, his eyes bright. Isabella's heart tightened. Her kids' trust in Rafael was a complication she hadn't anticipated. She nodded, forcing a smile. "Let's make cupcakes then." As they worked, the bell chimed, and Carla Vega stepped inside, her sleek ponytail and designer sunglasses contrasting with the bakery's homespun charm. "Isabella, I have something you need to hear," she said, her voice smooth. She handed over another USB drive. "It's a new recording. Torres was talking about your bakery just last week." Isabella's stomach churned as she plugged the drive into her laptop. The audio was clear. Rafael's voice was used to discuss finalizing the Ruiz property deal with investors. "He's been lying to you," Carla said, her smile cold. "He's still after your land." Isabella's hands trembled as she paused the recording. The words cut deep, echoing her worst fears. She thought of Rafael's smile, his patience with her kids, and the festival he'd organized to save her business. Was it all a facade? "Why are you doing this?" she asked Carla, her voice steady, despite her turmoil. Carla's eyes flickered, but she recovered quickly. "I want to protect you," she said. "Torres destroys people like us." But her tone felt rehearsed, and Isabella's instincts prickled. There was more to Carla's motives than she was letting on. After Carla left, Isabella sat in the back of the bakery, the recording looping in her mind. Mateo, ever perceptive, noticed her distress. "Mama, what's wrong?" he asked, sitting beside her. Sophia climbed into her lap, hugging her tightly. "Is it Rafael?" Mateo pressed. Isabella sighed, not wanting to burden them, but unable to lie. "I don't know if we can trust him," she admitted. Mateo frowned, his young face serious. "But he's nice, Mama. He helped us." Sophia nodded, clutching her kite. "He wouldn't hurt us." Their faith in Rafael broke Isabella's heart. She wanted to protect them, but they'd already let him into their world. Determined to uncover the truth, she called a friend who worked in audio forensics, asking her to analyze the recording. While she waited, the bakery stayed busy, and Isabella threw herself into work baking with a ferocity that kept her doubts at bay. But when Rafael arrived that afternoon, his usual confidence tempered by worry, she couldn't hide her anger. "I heard the new recording." She set her voice low to avoid alarming her kids. Rafael's eyes widened, a mix of shock and hurt. "Isabella, I don't know what you heard, but it's not me," he said. I haven't spoken to investors about your land in months." She held up the USB drive, her hands shaking. "Then explain this." He listened to the recording, his face darkening. "This is fake," he said, his voice firm. "Someone's manipulating my voice. I'll find out who." Isabella wanted to believe him, but the evidence was overwhelming. "I can't keep doing this," she said, her voice breaking. "I need to protect my family." Rafael's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I'll prove it's not me," he said. "I'm not giving up on you." He left the bell chiming a hollow echo in the quiet bakery. That evening, Isabella's friend called with news. The recording was a deep fake, stitched together from older audio clips. The realization hit like a wave. Carla had gone to extremes to turn her against Rafael. But why Isabella called Carla demanding answers? But Carla's responses were evasive, hinting at her own interest in the port's land. Carla insisted, "I'm just looking out for you." But Isabella hung up her resolve, hardening. She needed to confront Rafael, not with accusations, but with an open mind. The next day, a delivery arrived, a set of recipe books for Mateo, with a note from Rafael, for the future chef. Isabella's heart softened, but she pushed the feeling aside. She called Rafael, asking him to meet her at the bakery after closing. When he arrived, his eyes were tired but determined. "I found out Carla's working with a rival developer," he said, showing her emails he'd uncovered. "She's been trying to sabotage me to get the port for herself." Isabella studied the emails, her doubts shifting. Carla's lies were unraveling, but trust was still a leap. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice soft. "But I need time." Rafael nodded, his smile small but genuine. "I'll wait, Isabella, as long as it takes." As he left, the port's lights glittered outside, a reminder that truth, like the tide, would rise. Isabella tucked her kids into bed that night, their faith in Rafael a beacon. She'd give him a chance, but she'd do it on her terms, for her family, for Dulce Sol. The port of Miami glowed under the setting sun, its docks bathed in hues of orange and pink. Inside Dulce Sol, Isabella Ruiz worked with a steady rhythm, her hands shaping dough for a batch of coconut macaroons. The bakery was her heart, where she poured her love for her children and her mother's memory into every pastry. But the past weeks had tested her strength. Rafael Torres, the billionaire, who'd become a fixture in her life, had proven Carla Vega's recording was a deepfake, and his emails suggested Carla was the one after her land. Yet Isabella's trust, battered by doubt and betrayal, was slow to mend. She wanted to believe Rafael, but her heart and her children's future hung in the balance. As an African-American single mother, Isabella had faced countless challenges: financial strain, prejudice, the loss of her mother. But Dulce Sol was her anchor. Mateo, with his chef's dreams, and Sofia's love for stories, were her reasons to keep fighting. The bakery's recent surge had eased some pressure thanks to Rafael's festival, but rising costs still loomed. Rafael's gestures, the oven, the books, the mural had softened her defenses, but Carla's lies had left scars. Isabella needed to know Rafael's heart before she could let him in fully. The bakery was quiet that morning, the air filled with the scent of fresh bread and the hum of a lone fan. Mateo and Sofia were at school, giving Isabella time to think. She replayed Rafael's words, his earnest promise to prove himself. The emails he'd shown her exposing Carla's ties to a rival developer made sense, but trust was fragile. She thought of her mother, who'd always said love is a risk, but family is worth it. Was Rafael worth the risk? The bell chimed, and Rafael stepped inside, his linen shirt slightly rumpled, his blue eyes cautious but warm. He said, "I didn't want to come uninvited, standing by the counter, but I needed to see you." Isabella nodded, gesturing to a table. I got your emails, she said. Carla's been lying. But I need to know everything, Rafael. No more secrets. He sat his hands clasped tightly. Ask me anything, he said. I'm an open book. She took a deep breath, her questions spilling out. Why had he pursued her land in the first place? What was his history with Carla? Had he ever hurt people like her? Small business owners fighting to survive? Rafael answered with a raw honesty that surprised her. He admitted to scouting her lot before meeting her, driven by ambition, but not malice. He confirmed Carla was his ex, a relationship that ended when he refused her unethical business proposals. And yes, he'd made deals that displaced businesses, but he was trying to change, inspired by her strength and her mother's legacy. I fell for you, Isabella, he said, his voice low. Not your land, not your bakery. You. The way you fight for your kids, for this place. It made me want to be better. His words stirred something deep within her, a longing to trust again. She thought of Mateo and Sofia, how they'd lit up around him, how he'd become part of their world. But fear held her back. I need to protect my family, she said. I can't risk them getting hurt. Rafael nodded, his eyes steady. I know, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. He reached into his bag, pulling out a contract. This is a lease agreement, he said. It guarantees Dulce Sol stays in your hands no matter what happens with the port. I've already signed it. Isabella scanned the document, her breath catching. It was ironclad, protecting her bakery for decades. Why, she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Rafael smiled, soft and genuine. Because you're worth it. Before she could respond, Mateo and Sofia burst in, their school day done. Sofia squealed, running to hug him. Mateo showed him a sketch of a new recipe, a guava cheesecake. Rafael listened intently, asking questions, his warmth drawing smiles from both kids. Isabella watched, her heart softening. She thought of the beach where Rafael had promised to fly kites with them, of the festival that had saved her business, of the man who'd risked his empire to protect her dream. That evening, Isabella took Rafael to the port's edge, where the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues. I'm sorry I doubted you, she said, her voice steady. Carla's lies, the recording, it scared me. Rafael took her hand, his touch gentle. I'd be scared too, he said. But I'm here, Isabella. For you, for Mateo, for Sofia. She looked into his eyes, seeing not the billionaire, but the man who'd shared her burdens. She leaned in, and they kissed the waves, a soft witness to their connection. As they walked back to the bakery, hand in hand, Isabella felt a weight lift. Trust was still a leap, but she was ready to take it. For her kids, for her mother's legacy, for the possibility of love. The port's lights twinkled, a promise of new beginnings, and Isabella knew she'd face whatever came next with Rafael by her side. The port of Miami shimmered under the late afternoon sun, its docks bustling with the rhythm of life, vendors hawking fresh fish, tourists snapping photos, and waves crashing against the weathered pilings. Inside, Dulce Sol Isabella Ruiz worked with renewed purpose, her hands shaping dough for a batch of guava pastelitos. The bakery's warm, sugary aroma filled the air, a comforting constant, in a world that had shifted beneath her feet. Rafael Torres, the white American billionaire who'd become an unexpected anchor in her life, had proven his sincerity. His lease agreement guaranteeing Dulce Sol's future and his exposure of Carla Vega's lies had dismantled the walls around Isabella's heart. Under the fiery Miami sunset, their kiss by the port sealed a fragile trust, but questions lingered. Could she build a future with him, without losing herself or her legacy? As an African-American single mother, Isabella had carved a life of resilience. She'd kept Dulce Sol alive through financial strain, rising rents, and the weight of raising Mateo and Sofia alone. The bakery was her mother's dream, a testament to love and perseverance, and a promise to her children of a brighter future. Mateo 10. With his sketches of recipes and ambitions to become a chef, and Sofia 6, with her boundless energy and love for stories, were her heart. Rafael's presence had brought warmth and possibility, but also risk. Could she trust him fully? Not just with her business, but with her family. The bakery was bustling that morning, the air filled with the chatter of regulars and the clink of coins in the tip jar. Isabella moved efficiently, her mind buzzing with thoughts of Rafael's latest gesture. The lease agreement was a lifeline, ensuring Dulce Sol would remain hers no matter what happened at the port. But it also raised new questions. Rafael's world boardroom's wealth power differed significantly from hers. Could they bridge that gap without losing what made Dulce Sol special? Mateo and Sofia burst in after school, their backpacks bouncing. "Mama, can we go to the beach with Rafael?" Sofia asked, clutching her dolphin kite, a gift from him. Mateo showed Isabella a new recipe sketch, a coconut tart inspired by Rafael's stories of his mother. "He said we could try making it together," Mateo said, his eyes bright. Isabella's heart softened. Her kids had embraced Rafael, their trust, a beacon she couldn't ignore. She nodded, smiling. "We'll see, baby. Let's finish today's orders first." The bell chimed, and Rafael stepped inside, his linen shirt slightly rumpled, his blue eyes warm but cautious. "Thought I'd stop by for a coffee." He leaned against the counter. Isabella handed him a cup, their fingers brushing, sending a spark through her. "You're here a lot for someone with a company to run." She teased, her tone lighter than it had been in weeks. Rafael grinned, a boyish charm breaking through his polished exterior. "What can I say? Your coffee's better than my boardrooms." As the day wore on, Rafael lingered, helping Mateo carry trays and teaching Sofia to pipe frosting. His ease with her kids was disarming, and Isabella watched him, her heart caught between hope and fear. During a quiet moment, he pulled her aside, his expression serious. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice low. "What if we didn't just protect Dulce Sol? What if we made it bigger?" Isabella frowned, unsure. "Bigger how?" she asked. Rafael's eyes lit up. "A chain of Dulce Sol bakeries across Miami, maybe beyond. You'd run it, keep the heart of this place, but scale it up. I'd invest and handle the business side so you can focus on what you love, baking, creating and teaching Mateo." He gestured to the bakery. "This could be a legacy not just for you, but for your kids." Isabella's breath caught. The idea was thrilling but daunting. Expanding meant growth and security, but also meant change, which scared her. After the kids were in bed, she studied the lease agreement again that night. It was solid, protecting the original Dulce Sol at the port. But Rafael's proposal was a leap, partnering with him, letting his world of wealth and ambition intertwine with hers. She thought of her mother, who'd built the bakery from nothing, her hands calloused but her spirit unbroken. Would she have taken this risk? Isabella wasn't sure, but the thought of Mateo and Sofia growing up with opportunities she'd never had made her pause. Rafael invited them to the beach the next day, promising to fly Sofia's kite. Isabella agreed, needing to see him outside the bakery, in a space where they could just be. The port's sands were warm under their feet, and the waves provided a soothing backdrop as Rafael helped Sofia launch her kite, its dolphin shape soaring against the blue sky. Mateo ran alongside, laughing, his recipe notebook tucked under his arm. Isabella watched, her heart swelling. Rafael wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who cared about her kids, who saw her dreams as his own. Rafael sat beside her on the sand as the sun dipped low, their shoulders brushing. I meant what I said about the chain, he said. But it's your call, Isabella. I won't push. She looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the vulnerability he rarely showed. I'm scared, she admitted. This place is my mother's heart. If we expand, will it still be Dulce Sol? Rafael took her hand, his touch steady. It'll be yours always. We'll keep the original and make it the soul of every new location. I promise. Isabella's throat tightened. She thought of Mateo's dreams, Sophia's joy, the weight of her mother's legacy. I'll think about it, she said, her voice soft. Rafael nodded, his smile warm. That's all I ask. They watched the kite dance in the sky, the kids' laughter echoing, and for the first time, Isabella let herself imagine a future where Rafael was part of her world, not a threat to it. Over the next few days, Isabella weighed the idea. She talked to her sister, who had a pragmatic voice, and urged her to consider financial security. She visited her mother's grave, whispering her fears and hopes. The bakery stayed busy, the festival's success bringing new customers. But the rent loomed a reminder of her precarious reality. When Rafael returned, she was ready. I'll do it, she said, her voice firm. But the Port Dulce Sol stays untouched. It's non-negotiable. Rafael's face lit up, and he pulled her into a hug, his warmth enveloping her. Deal, he said, and she felt the first stirrings of a partnership that could change everything. Rafael's team met with Isabella as they worked on plans respecting her vision. They scouted locations, keeping the Port Bakery as the flagship. Mateo and Sofia were thrilled, drawing logos for the new chain. Isabella's heart swelled, but a small part still feared losing control. She'd trust Rafael, but she'd do it with eyes open for her kids, her mother for Dulce Sol. The port of Miami sparkled under the golden light of dusk, its docks alive with the hum of a community in celebration. A year had passed since Isabella Ruiz had stood at the edge of trust, her heart torn between fear and hope. Now Dulce Sol was no longer just a small bakery tucked among the port's warehouses. It was the heart of a growing chain, with 3 new locations across Miami, each carrying the warmth and soul of her mother's legacy. The original Dulce Sol remained untouched, still nestled by the water, its faded sign a beacon of resilience. Isabella, an African-American single mother who'd fought to protect her family's dream, stood at the center of it all, her heart full but still adjusting to the new rhythm of her life. The journey hadn't been easy. Rafael Torres, the white American billionaire who'd become her partner in every sense, had proven his commitment. His investment had made Dulce Sol synonymous with Miami's spirit, but his love for her, Mateo, and Sofia changed her world. Their partnership had begun with a leap of faith, sealed by a contract that protected the Port Bakery and a kiss by the waves. Carla Vega, the rival who tried to tear them apart with lies and deepfakes, had left Miami after her schemes unraveled, her investors turning against her. Isabella had emerged stronger, her trust in Rafael, tempered by truth and time. Today was the grand opening of the newest Dulce Sol location, a sleek yet cozy shop blocks from the port designed to echo the original's charm. The event was a festival with live music, food stalls, and a crowd spilling onto the docks. Isabella moved through the chaos gracefully, her apron dusted with flour as she handed out pastelitos. Mateo, 11, helped at the counter, his confidence growing as he tested new recipes. Sofia, 7, danced with other kids, her dolphin kite soaring above the crowd, a gift from Rafael that symbolized their bond. Rafael was everywhere, carrying trays, joking with customers, his polished exterior softened by a year of working alongside Isabella. His company had recovered from the stock dip, his downtown projects thriving, but he spent more time at Dulce Sol than in boardrooms. He'd become part of the family, teaching Mateo to fish, reading stories to Sofia, and standing by Isabella through late nights of planning and baking. Their love had grown quietly built on shared moments. Sunset walks, laughter over spilled dough, and the unspoken promise to face the future together. Rafael pulled Isabella aside as the festival wound down, leading her to the port's edge where the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues. The crowd's noise faded, leaving only the sound of waves and their breathing. "I've got something for you," he said, his voice soft. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring, its diamond catching the last light of day. "Isabella, you've changed me," he said, his blue eyes steady. "I want to build a life with you, Mateo and Sofia. Will you marry me?" Isabella's breath caught her heart pounding. She thought of her mother, who'd taught her to fight for what mattered, her kids, who'd embraced Rafael as family, and the bakery that had grown from a dream into a legacy. She'd been scared to trust and love, but Rafael had proven himself not with words, but with actions, protecting her business, loving her children, standing by her side. "Yes," she whispered, tears in her eyes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed the waves, a soft witness to their promise. Mateo and Sofia ran over, their eyes wide. "Mama, is that a ring?" Sofia squealed, hugging them both. Mateo grinned, nudging Rafael. "You're gonna be our dad now." Rafael laughed, ruffling his hair. "Suppose you'll have me chef." The kids cheered, and Isabella pulled them close, her heart full. The port's lights twinkled, reflecting the life they'd built together. As the festival ended that night, Isabella and Rafael stood in the original Dulce Sol, where the kids were asleep in the back room. The bakery was quiet, its familiar scents grounding her. "We did it," she said, looking at Rafael. "We kept her dream alive." He took her hand, his touch steady. "It's our dream now," he said. They stepped outside the port, glowing under the stars, and Isabella knew they'd face whatever came next together as a family with Dulce Sol as their heart.